Hey everybody, just wanted to give you all an update on this real estate series. So on that 30th Street space, I finally got a lease sent out from the managing agent. It's 64 pages. To put that into perspective, before doing any negotiating with my current space, the lease was 15 pages. This lease is 64 pages. So something tells me that between the Jewish holidays coming up, that my lawyer and the managing agent of that company both partaken, and the length of that lease, that we are a far ways off from signing something or getting a deal. But that is still the front runner. So let's just talk about why the 30th Street space won out over the other two spaces that were the final contenders, which are the Ave B and East 4th Street restaurant, and also the 28th Street and Lexington Hindu statue store, the place with 2 levels. So when it comes to the restaurant, the first reason that they lost out, even though I was fully willing to go ahead with the deal at $10,000 a month, was because they wanted 0 concession. So no concession, no free rent, even though I have to kill thousands of cockroaches, cart a bunch of crap out of there, clean up a bunch of grease, and do quite a bit of construction, adding a gate, fixing up the windows, everything before I can use it. He played hardball, and he lost. So what he could have done is say, we'll give you 2 months. Not even the 3 months that other places are offering you, or 6 months that the places that are as screwed up as this are offering you. We're giving you nothing. If he had even given me 2 months, I would have signed the lease when I got it, then and there, after having a contractor do the walkthrough. The problem is that he stayed hardball on the 0 months. And when Steve showed up and I showed up, and Steve spent about 40 minutes back and forth with that guy trying to get anything out of him, he got nothing. 0. Zilch. He said, it doesn't make sense. Why would I do that when I could charge a restaurant $50,000 to take the space? It doesn't make sense that I give you anything. I'm giving you restaurant equipment for free. You should be happy with it. So I decided to keep looking at that point because I just said, okay, well, it seems like this is not going to work. And that's when I found the Allen space at West 30th Street. I had no idea that $70 per square foot was available in Midtown Manhattan. I didn't believe it. I had no idea. I was pigeonholed into this idea that I need to be in Alphabet City because that's all I could afford. Because if it was any nicer, I couldn't afford it, as John Grossbard would say. But that was not true. And the reason I was able to find out that that wasn't true is because the restaurant managing agent played hardball and he lost. So he came back to me and said, we'll give you 1 month free rent. What about 2 months? Okay, no. What about 3 months? No. What about 6 months? No. And then a few days ago, he finally got back to me and said, we'll give you $9,000 in 6 months free rent. And I realized that we're going down the road at this point to where you're probably going to give me this restaurant for free. So I said that I was looking at another place. I'm not interested anymore. I had to clarify to him that essentially this is on you. If you had simply given me 2 months free at $10,000, I actually would have taken it. The reason I'm not taking it now, even though you're offering me more, is not because I'm trying to be an asshole. It's simply because I did not know that something that much better was available. But you gave me an opening to find out that much better is available. Had you not played hardball, I would have never found Alan, I would have never kept looking, and I would have never had Alan explain to me, look, you could get Midtown store space for about the same price per square foot that you'd be paying for some shitty restaurant out in the middle of nowhere. And if you look on a map of New York City, if you're watching this from outside New York City, look at a map, look where my current store is on Google Maps. If you look at 12th Street and First Avenue, you'll see that we're 2 blocks from a major train, the L train. It's one train only that we're a few blocks from, but that is the train that transports the hipsters from Williamsburg to Manhattan, from Bushwick, and also that goes to, the dorms for NYU and all that stuff. So it's a train with lots of corroded JTAG connectors on it. I'll leave it at that. That would make for good business. So we're 2 blocks away from the train. If you look at Avenue B and East 4th Street, that is a trek. That is 10 short blocks, 2 really long blocks from the L, or 3 or 4 long blocks from the F, and then 4 short blocks. It's far out there. It's very far out there into middle of nowhere section of Manhattan. And I thought to myself, even if you were to give me all these concessions, knowing that just a few $1,000s more would get me around 30th Street, where I'm close to the 1, the 2, the 3, the N, the Q, the R, the W, the B, the D, the F, the V, the A, the C, the E, the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 6. Why? Why would I take something in the middle of nowhere? And it's one of these things where when you're moving on, when you're taking on new expenses as a business and you're trying to grow, so you're upgrading, I think it's important to be upgrading everything. So our space should look better. Our space should be more accessible to customers. Our space should be in a more high traffic area. Our space should be easier to get to. Our space should be more convenient for the organization of the workers at the company. And while that space was larger, while that space would have looked better when we were done with construction, and it was a major downgrade in location. And if I'm going to be doubling or tripling the amount of rent that I spend and putting a lot of money into construction, I don't want to figure out the hard way that most of my customers, while they like me, they're not willing to walk an additional 14 blocks to the middle of nowhere after they get off the train to get to me. Because, most people, when they're looking at spaces like this, where do I get my hair cut? Which ATM do I go to or whatever? They're looking for a space that is close to the train. They don't want to have to go to some far off train and then have to walk 14 blocks after they get off the train. If you're right there when they get off the train, that's business. If they got to walk 14 blocks when they get off the train, that's what we call a lost sale to another competitor. So I don't want to have that type of balance. If I'm putting all this money in, it should be an upgrade in every single area. So I laid it out to him, and I made it very clear that you had your chance, as Mr. Freeze was saying to Batman when in season 1, episode 5. And so did you. I like that episode. I really like Batman Beyond as a series, especially season 1, episode 5. Everybody should watch that. I think you could find it on Vimeo for free. But anyway, you had your chance. You really did. I was open to taking the space. And you screwed up. And here's the thing that sucks about this industry, and here's something that Steve said, which is why Steve has not taken part in most of the negotiations, is that I'm a good negotiator. Steve is a great negotiator. I'm speaking as Steve, not me. I suck at negotiating. He's very good at negotiating. But where he falls short is when the only way to get a concession is by walking away. He'll go back and forth. He'll say, well, I understand where you're coming from here. That doesn't work for you. Maybe this will. Or you can't make a concession here. What if we make a concession here, and then in exchange you make a concession there? That's Steve's type of negotiating, like actual going back and forth. Whereas real estate negotiating is, no, we can get somebody else in, so it doesn't make any sense to give you any concession or any compromise. And then you walk away, and then they go, no, come back. It's like, oh, what, motherfucker? I thought you had everybody lining up to take your space. What happened to that? Oh, yeah, you don't, you lying prick. But anyway, that's the way it works in real estate. It's scummy. It's bad. It's in bad faith negotiating. It's scummy negotiating tactic. And it makes you feel like a fucking sleazeball and slimeball. And that's not how he negotiates. But that's how I can negotiate if I flip a switch that I don't like turning, that I have been turning to get the deals that I've been getting. And if you had not done that, you would have had a tenant. You wouldn't have been having to lower your rent by $1,000 or up the concession by 3 to 4 months. You had me. But you fucked up. And because you negotiated in bad faith, you lost the deal. Maybe this will help you with your next deal. And this is not something that I am telling you to tell you how to do your job, because we've had 3 or 4 back and forth emails where I never mentioned this. I cordially just said, thank you, we found other spaces, but that, I appreciate it, but it's not going to work. But since you're coming back to me for the 3rd or 4th time, I think I should at least explain to you what you did wrong so you don't repeat it. Now we move on to the Lexington Avenue and 28th Street space. That space was actually pretty good. It started off at $14,900, then $14,500, then $14,000, then $13,500, then $13,000, and we finally got them down to $13,000 after an hour and back and forth. Then the security deposit, they want 4 months. Then we get it down to 3 months. Then we get it down to 2 months, and then the 3 months. And again, it took another hour of going back and forth to get them down to a 2-month deposit and 2 months free. And which is actually a good deal. That's better than 30th Street. Even though there's a little bit higher rent, it's considerably better in the deposit. And even though it's only 2 months free, there is admittedly less work that would have to be done to that space. So why say no? Well, it's not simply the fact that it's less conveniently located when it comes to trains. The 30th Street space is 1,930 or 1,950, I forget, around like 1,950 square feet. I'll estimate on the high side. We'll be a realtor for tonight. It's about 1,950 square feet of throughout the entire space. Whereas the space on Lexington, the Lexington Avenue space, that Hindu statue store, that space was about 1,000 square feet or so on the bottom and about 1,100 square feet on the top. So even though it's more square footage overall, in order to get upstairs, you don't get upstairs from inside the building or inside the store. You need to walk outside of the store, take out your key, open a door, walk up the stairs, take out another key, open another door, and then get into the space that way. And that is an upgrade in the size of space. However, it's a considerable downgrade when you talk about convenience. So it's raining outside. I need to take a machine from downstairs to upstairs. Am I going to be getting more liquid damage on something that I already fixed? I have to now. If I want to just like have an employee come back or something, I can't just look at them and do this or say, hey, come here. Or I can't hear conversations that are going on around me if I put effort into it, or if there's something going on, I can't just say, be quiet for a moment, so I can just hear and see if something is something that I should be paying attention to, because it's on another plane. And not only is it on another floor, but there's not one but two locked doors sitting between the two spaces. Well, that's going to drastically decrease the convenience of workflow. If to get to your incoming queue, you have to go through two locked doors each time and carry stuff up a stairwell. That is and it's not something that seems like a big deal if you're just thinking about it in abstract, but it is a big deal if you start actually working in that environment and just considering what your workflow would be like, what your day would be like if there is that separation. If you have to carry boxes as well, you have to carry equipment, you have to carry shipments. It's a pain in the ass way of working. And one of the things that was really important with this move is, as I said, when you're upgrading, if you're going to be upgrading or expanding in any way, you want to upgrade in every way possible. Better location, more space, nicer looking location, more convenient for the customers and for you. So if we are in a space where the bottom floor is only a 350 square foot upgrade, and in order to get the rest of the space, you need to go upstairs, which means going out of the building and then going back into the building through two locked doors to get there, that is a major downgrade in convenience to even what I have now. That's a large downgrade in convenience to what I have now, and that is not worth it if I'm going to be spending $13,000. Again, we're looking at putting $60,000 to $180,000 of construction into a space. We're looking at just the turnkey cost of moving in being over $40,000, just to get keys and sign a lease and have an attorney review it. And we're looking at doubling to tripling the rent, going from $4,700 to $4,900 over to $13,000. If I'm going to be tripling the amount of money that I spend on a space and paying six figures just to get in, it needs to be an upgrade in every way possible. Not a partial upgrade here, a downgrade there. If we're dealing with it's an upgrade in this way, but a downgrade in that way, then it's got to be something where I'm just moving over and I'm not shelling out six figures of money for it. And I'm just thinking of the workflow of anytime you want to grab something or bring something down, you have to go through two locked doors and a stairwell and go outside the building to do it. That's a pain in the ass because we walk back and forth on a regular basis to, if not just for the ability to interface when we're dealing with difficult to solve problems, or, because a lot of the workflow here is somebody's having a difficult to solve problem and it's starting to aggravate them and they ask for help and they get a little bit of help. And then they're trying to do it, but they can't figure out exactly how to implement the advice. And because there's line of sight and you can hear and see, you're like, oh, yeah, no, when I said to do A, I meant do A like this. And then it's that type of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's that type of collaboration and workflow that makes it easy. So each person has their own space, but it's easy to access the other people within that space. I'm not trying to sound like some WeWork hipster where, you being a programmer, it totally makes sense to be next to some guy who's a musician, which makes total sense to be next to some guy who is, a cement mixer or whatever. No, that's just them trying to make as much money as possible by inculcating you into the mindset that you should pay a premium to have less privacy and less space, which is bullshit. But in our business, if we're all doing the same thing and we're all working towards the same goal, it does make a little bit of sense that even if you have your sectioned off spaces, that it still be easy to access and easy to have lines of sight to the other spaces, so that when small little problems like that show up, you can help somebody out before they become too frustrated or too aggravated at whatever problem they're solving. And when you're working with products that are not documented, when you're working with items where you don't even know if the chip that you bought to put on here is the right one because this is a COO and this is a BO3 and you don't have access to the engineers or the documentation for it, or you're not sure why this adhesive is not working for the screen versus that one, it's very easy to get frustrated. And having that easy access to colleagues that will be able to help you out, it means something. And that's something that would be lost if you're separating people not only by a stairwell, not only by a floor, but by 2 locked doors. It's adding a lot of inconvenience to the process. Now, the 30th Street location. A 64-page lease. In this lease, there is a clause, I'm not kidding, that says I cannot have a bicycle inside the store. I don't know if I have enough money in my bank account to afford enough red ink to fill up my pens to cross out all the garbage in this lease. I just got to reading it. It's so adorable. It's adorable, and it's so cute. I think that's adorable, little Bernstein management, that you think that, like, really? No bicycles in the store at $12,833 a month. Not motorcycle, not truck, not car, fucking bicycle. Are you kidding me? I can't wait to read through the entire thing, because I haven't even read through the entire thing. I've only read through the sections that are ridiculous. And again, my attorney prepared me for this. To be clear, my lawyer told me that when you go through this lease, that the first copy you get is going to be pretty much satire. And then we're going to go through it, and then we're going to reduce it to something that's less ridiculous, and then they're going to go back and draft a new copy that's kind of normal ridiculous, and then we're going to go through that, and then we're going to go through, and then they're going to send us back a copy that's normal. But she explained to me, I have a very good commercial real estate attorney in New York who's good at, dealing with specifically commercial, retail, and office lease spaces in Manhattan. They're used to the BS that's in these leases. She said this is exactly what I expected to get, and we're going to work back and forth to get you a lease that makes sense. Maybe even a lease that's only 16 pages. Who knows? Yeah, my lease right now is about 15 or 16 pages. The lease for this new place, 64 pages. Now, one of the things that I always try to do is I try to frame things in a win-win mindset. And I think it's important to always look for the silver lining when there's something that sucks. So let's just take an example of this when it comes to consumer electronics repair. Many people would say that when they went from the LED, the chip that powers the screen backlight being in a little separate inverter board right below the screen that's easy to swap out, any 6th grader could do it, to a chip that was soldered on the motherboard, this is bad because it makes it harder. I think that that's honestly great, because that means that it's going to mean that if you're good at your job, that there's more business for you. So let's say there's 100 people doing this in my area, only 10 of them know how to solder. When you make it a requirement that you know how to solder, yes, it's annoying. It makes the job more difficult. It makes it take more time. But there's a silver lining, which is if I'm good at my job, more business for me. Now, once that chip is no longer a QFN, but a micro BGA, that means that it's not just very basic micro soldering skills needed. That means it's also more intermediate micro soldering skills needed. Will that make it more difficult for me to train a tech? Yes. Will that mean that I get more business when the places that cannot solder micro BGAs lose business because they don't know how to do it? Yes. There's a bad part to it, but there's also a silver lining, and you always want to be surfing that silver lining because that's going to be what allows you to profit. So here, where's my silver lining? Well, I have a 64-page lease. Crap. And there's also a bunch of Jewish holidays this month, which means that there's going to be a lot of delay in working back and forth between the management company, the owners of the building, and my attorney. Crap. How can I make that work to my advantage? Well, finding a contractor is also a nightmare. Finding an architect or a designer that does not think that he is designing a Macy's or an Apple store is also quite difficult and taking time. Figuring out the differences between a normal general contractor, a design build contractor, overpriced general contractor, a medium general contractor, guy who knows a guy, consulting Inc., that also is licensed, guy who knows a guy Inc. that has no license, like figuring out what the price points of all these people are and getting quotes for them is also going to take time. So if I was able to sign a lease like that, if I signed a lease tomorrow, what that means is that I'm now paying rent on a space without having without having a contractor. So what does that mean? I'm now paying rent to have a space that I can't use for anything, not even building, because I don't even have anybody to start the work. That's bad. Ideally, what would happen is you would already have all your bids laid out. You'd figure out which one you think is the most reputable while also being the one that makes the most sense financially. And then the moment you sign your lease, you hand your keys over to them. They get started measuring, drawing out plans, filing permits, and then getting to work. So here's what I'm doing. Well, it takes a lot of time to deal with a 64-page lease. Crap. And it's hard to get a contractor. Crap. So what can I do here? Maybe I can start showing the space to the contractors that I want to get bids from before I sign the lease. So the way I'm registering this in my head, I'm seeing the 64-page lease not as a burden, but I'm seeing it as a blessing in disguise. While we go back and forth with the, removing pages from this, like you can't have your bike in the building kind of rubbish, well, we're going back and forth with this kind of crap where for $12,000, $800 a month, I need to park my bike outside. Well, we're going back and forth negotiating this. What I'm hoping that we can do is have people come to view the space and put bids in it. We'll see, okay, how much do you want? How much do you think it'll be? How much do you think it'll be? Okay, now for designing the space, how would you envision yourself designing the space? How would you envision the space looking? What would it cost for you to design the space? What would it cost for you to implement your vision? And so on and so forth. So that by the time I finally get the keys, after crossing out all this nonsense in this lease and going through that negotiation process with the building management again, where again, I need to profess that even though I have people, I have plans and everything drawn up on how to make your space, I will walk away in a moment's notice if you're telling me that I have to park my bike outside, then we're in a better position than we would be if I was paying rent right now while doing this search for a contract and wasting time having bidders come in. I always try to view the silver lining as the blessing in disguise, and that's where we are right now. So we have a lease. That lease is sitting with my attorney. They're going to be going back and forth on it. I'm going to try to see if I can get that very kind and polite super from that building, who was very helpful. We were doing our walk through the space to open the door for me every now and then so that I can have a contractor walk through, give me a bid, and so that the moment that we have a lease that my attorney and myself both agree is written with not only the best interests of the landlord in mind, but also my best interests, the moment that we sign off on it, I can take those keys, give them to a contractor, and get to work. Because I believe that 30th Street space is the best combination of everything. It's a good it's a good value for the dollar, $70 per square foot with no loss factor considered, about $79 a square foot with loss factor considered. That's less than my current space, which after rent increases is actually going to be going up to $95 to $96 a square foot. So keep in mind that per square foot, this space is about $20 cheaper than where I am right now. It's near every major train. It's larger. The layout of the space is going to be more convenient than my current one, not less convenient where I need to go upstairs and everything like that. And the area is actually a more heavy, high traffic area than the area that I am in right now. So this space is an upgrade in every possible way. The only thing that is in the way right now is that finding contractors that don't just give blind quotes without even looking at the space is very difficult, and getting over this lease. And one of the things that I'm really interested in is that I've only found 2 contractors so far, only 2 of everyone I've contacted that says we would like to look at the space before we give you the numbers you gave any thought. I've contacted so many design build companies, and many of these design build companies are throwing out generic $100 to $165 per square foot figures, or they'll go, well, you're looking at $290,000 for construction, or you're looking at $350 for construction, or you're looking at this, and you haven't even walked through the space. You haven't walked through the space. This is not no backlight on a MacBook Air where you can quote 150 to 325. This is a lot of work in a fairly large space. How are you giving me these numbers before you've even examined the wall? Because some of them have even admitted we haven't looked through your video yet. And if you haven't even seen my video walkthrough, where are you getting those numbers from? So this is, and one of the things that I've learned so far is that a design build company with an office in Manhattan is most likely a genius bar. I'm starting to learn, because there's parallels between the different industries, even though they have nothing to do with one another, that there are names for things. And once you know to call things by their proper name, it's much easier going forward. Like when it came to, I knew the type of jumper wire that I wanted, I just didn't know what it was called. So I wound up trying Carnot wire. That doesn't work. I tried using a wire from an IDE cable. That didn't work. I tried using molybdenum wire, the crap that you're supposed to use to remove the glass from a broken glass from a Samsung S2. That didn't work. LVDS cable wire. That didn't work. Enamel magnet wire, enamel magnet wire. That works. I knew what I wanted. I didn't know what it was called. Now, from the last video, somebody said you don't want to hire an architect and then hire a large contractor. You want a design build company, because they're going to design the space for you. They're going to do all the filings with the Department of Buildings, and they're going to make sure it looks nice, and they're going to find all the contractors for you. So I thought, aha, that's what I want. I want a design build company. Thank you so much for telling me the name of the thing that I was looking for that I didn't know. But what I didn't realize is that design build contractor means genius bar, and I don't want a genius bar. I don't want to pay $750 because of my trackpad ribbon cable needs to be replaced. I don't want to pay $1,200 for a backlight fuse. No. I want to pay $200 to get my board fixed. I don't want to pay $1,250 to have my trackpad cable replaced. And I'm trying to find the interior design and general contractor's version of $200 to $400 to fix my board, rather than $1,500 to replace my trackpad cable, which is what's happening right now. When I reach out to the average Manhattan design build company, I'm speaking to the place that's trying to tell me that it's going to cost $2,000 to fix the fact that my machine has one bent pin on the screen cable. And even if they have a very specific policy that leads them in their minds to thinking that that's appropriate for them, cool. Not for me, because I'm not a millionaire. I mean, like, I got this one comment on Reddit the other day. It made me chuckle, where somebody said, he's a multi-millionaire by now. He's got millions off of all this YouTube money, and I wound up showing the screenshot of what I actually made off of YouTube in the last 7.5 years, including all the donations from the people after the building fire last year. Thank you very much for that, by the way, just in case it hasn't been mentioned already. Right after my building went on fire, October last year, a few months after my concussion, all the inventory that I had in the basement got flooded from all the water they were using to put out the fire. And without me even doing anything, mentioning anything, hundreds upon thousands of people left donations on my YouTube channel. So without me saying anything, which to me is just thank you. That is genuinely just thank you. It's a beautiful thing, and I am in your debt for putting in that type of generosity towards me when I probably haven't done shit for you. But yeah, I put out the number, and I think that most of these design build contractors, they think I'm a millionaire. They think that I inherited $750,000 from my parents. It's always been my dream to open a coffee shop in Manhattan that's pretty. And since I inherited $750,000, well, parting with half of it is not really going to mean that much to me, right? Like, no, that's money. That means something to me. And I'm looking for somebody who can make the space look nice, has an eye for design, can tell me what I should make it look like, can tell me how it should be done. That is also not looking to take me for, every last penny from now until eternity. And that's where we're at. So that's it for today. As always, I hope you learned something, and I look forward to being done with all of this real estate stuff soon so that we can get back to the regular board repair videos and hard drive videos and Paul videos and stuff like that I used to do. The store has gotten to the point where it's a little too. It's Steve is simply far too busy to do data recovery videos at that point. At this point, there's virtually no time for him to put any effort into doing data recovery videos. We can't hire another person to do that because we'd have to get another clean room bench, and Steve is already working right. It's really funny. He has a ridiculously high success rate with hard drives, and his clean room bench is literally located across from the fucking garbage pile. I don't know where. If we get another clean room bench, we're gonna have to put the Steve's data recovery colleague likely out on the street. Not very clean room. Yeah, it's a little crowded. So I would like to start getting back to doing more of the educational stuff and being able to do educational videos on more stuff. Maybe iPhone data recovery videos, hard drive data recovery videos, all sorts of stuff. But I can't really get to work on that stuff until we move, because set 13 people right now are working inside of a 650 square foot hallway, and that's just it's stressful. It's difficult to manage. Adding videos on top of it is fairly difficult. So that's it, and I'm going to stop rambling. This video made it to 31 minutes. That's way too long, and I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.